cabin on the left, and behind the iron door at the back there are more family members here. You may notice the two flags. We have the flag of the country, and we also have the flag of the Commander-in-Chief. A flag of this type flew at Washington's headquarters throughout the Revolutionary War. If you got to the Army's encampment and you were looking for the general, you looked for this flag. Because the general is here, we fly the flag for him each day. Now what I'm going to do is step away so that you can do the ceremony with us. So first thing we're going to do is say a pledge in honor of the country that Washington held down. Who's going to lead our pledge today? And your first name is? Anais is going to lead the pledge. So if you have hats on, hats come off. Okay. Everybody face the flag. All right. Anais, go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. Very nice, everyone. Hats back on. It's cold out here. All right, and laying our wreath today, your first name is? Grant. All right, Grant will be laying the wreath. Grant, what I'd like to ask you to do is hold the wreath from the front of the stand and the back of the stand. And you'll have a chance to step over the step. Be very careful. And take just about 2 big steps in. Place the wreath and stand there so that all of your classmates and your teachers can get some pictures of you.
From the back end.
That's perfect.
No.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Nicely done, Grant.
Nicely done. Yes, very nicely done. Very nicely done. Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to put this chin up, but I'm going to leave the gates open so that each one of you can take a picture here if you like. With the gates open. And once you've done that, everyone, you have to change over here.
Grandma.
Al-Muriya, we're probably gonna switch seats on the. We're gonna switch seats on the way back because me and Kim are gonna sit together. The second way. Okay. Yeah. Way back in the back of the. Well, yeah, I'll move my stuff. Oh, somewhere to sit. Probably found my phone.
No, she gave
She gotta keep it. I bet she will.
I found a penny.
I bet she will.
You find money or I'll you find money. You're gonna do it again? 1, 2, 3, go. 2.
They were also sometimes weaving or sewing to make clothes for the slaves, because George Washington not only had to give food to the slaves, had a house to the slaves, but he also had to give clothing to the slaves and medical care too. Now in return, what did the slaves give? There's one word for it. What were the slaves giving in return for a house? Or food? That's it. Who said it in the back? Yeah, y'all didn't raise your hand, but I heard it. Yeah, the slaves worked. And when the slaves were done with their work, what did they get to look forward to? You can all say it. No, more work. More work. As long as the sun was up, slaves were working. Now, George Washington worked very hard himself. So he expected those around him to work hard too. Now, some of you were talking about discipline and punishment. Now, George Washington did sometimes discipline and punish the slaves if they weren't doing their job or they did something that he thought was wrong. He would punish them or discipline them. They could be given extra work to do. They could be, some of them were hit with a cane. He tried not to hurt the slaves though, because he wanted the slaves to be strong to work. But he was a military man, and he also believed in order, and he believed in hard work, so he would. Encourage the slaves with punishment or with reward. Now he liked reward better, but he did punish the slaves sometimes too. So One of the interesting things about George Washington is that by the time he died, there were 300 slaves working his property. That's a lot of slaves. He had 8,000 acres of land around his house. That includes the part that we've been walking around, but a lot more too. That was led over to farms. First, George Washington was growing that big crop that was so important here in Virginia. What was that? What's
Tobacco.
the big tobacco? That's right. But George Washington stopped growing tobacco and started growing wheat and corn as his main crops instead. So most of his farms, by the time he died, had wheat and corn in them. Now the slaves were working those farms. Do you know how big 8,000 acres is?
Yeah.
Close your eyes and think of a football field. Okay, everybody got a football field in their head?
Yeah.
All right, now add 7,999 other football fields to that one.
Whoa.
That's 8,000 football fields worth of land. What? Yep. 8,000 football fields worth of land.
Isn't that like
Now, George Washington did not own all of the slaves that worked on his property when he died. Some of the slaves were actually rented from a neighbor. They went back to the neighbor after he died. Some of the slaves belonged to Mrs. Washington's household, and they went to her grandchildren. But 123 slaves belonged outright to George Washington when he died. What did he do with his slaves when he died? Does anybody know? Somebody who hasn't answered, somebody who hasn't had a chance to answer. How is it? He set them free. Yes, George Washington in his will set them free. So one of the things that we've talked about as we went through the house today are some of the legacies that George Washington gave us. Some of those legacies like choosing to be a president and not to be a king, giving us the peaceful transfer of power, and freeing his slaves at the end of his life. These are all big legacies that George Washington has given to us. Now we're on the end also that sometimes your life takes sacrifice for others. Washington believed in service and duty. These are good legacies as well. Service and duty to others. So you all are thinking of some great legacies. I want to finish up the tour by talking about a couple of legends. One more stop.
Okay.
All right. Can we talk about that?
Things were moving. Like things over there, like that animal, like some of the stuff on the